I have the honor, and I'm very happy to introduce you my dearest colleagues from Potsdam. We prepared the whole session together during a seminar which Eva Kimminich gave on conspiracy theories, and we studied like different disciplinary approaches to conspiracy theories. And yeah, now this group chose to present together. Just a quick introduction of who we have. So Professor Kimminich is in the Romanistic Roman languages faculty and is working on cultures in Roman languages. JULIUS ERDMANN is her PhD student, also a semiotician who's working on, during his PhD thesis, on pictorial representations during the Tunis Revolution. We have MAREEN, also a colleague of ours, bachelor student, and ZIEMS. MAREEN is special student of cultural studies, or cultures of Roman languages also, or Roman countries, and ZIEMS, who does literature studies and also culture within Roman areas, yeah, in Romania. Okay, so I pass the word to Professor Kimminich and enjoy the presentation.
So thank you very much, SAMAN. And first I want to say that this is a common work, so you already saw this kind of scheme, what we developed together, and I thank very much Anya for the layout of Legos, but this was the idea we were developing together in our seminaries, so it's really a teamwork, and I would like to thank the whole team very much, not only for organization, but also for our intellectual discussions we had. And I will now try to explain the idea we had, what is a constructivist idea, and I will give some examples also on the CA pages, and then Julius and Maureen and Jenny will go to detail to look deeper inside the modules. We deem conspiracy theories to be interpretation patterns which refer to events and developments in social reality. They are thus to be seen as a component of social reality construction. This in turn is the most comprehensively observed within a social, cultural and constructivist approach. We thus take the model of S.J. Schmidt, who speaks of an operation system for society steering all cognitive, an operation system for society steering all cognitive and communicative processes. It serves the semantic categories which evaluate the naming of differences in advance. It is therefore, citation, about the process of orientation in semantic space, which in a way creates its own ontology via the prerequisites of its setting and the setting of its prerequisites. Through the increasing individualization of our society, the interpretation authority on official interpretation content has increasingly been dissolved. Ever since the First Gulf War, but especially again since the beginning of the European crisis, an increase in individual interpretation attempts has been observed. It is the result of a growing skepticism among citizens about politics and their doubt about the truth of official information. The construction of reality, which was previously bound to unquestionable aggregation of power, seems to be crumbling in a mosaic of interpretation offerings. Those, in turn, give individuals the impression they could or had to even construct the reality themselves. We are therefore seeing the boom of conspiracy theories as connected to the increasing information offering, particularly in the internet. And there we had already some good examples yesterday. Countless websites suggest to users that they have finally found the truth and real causes behind the disturbing developments. At the core, there is thus a competition between interpretation and evaluation patterns within the semantic field of societal reality perception and creation, a semantic field which is already stretched by the media. These alternative information websites are therefore a gold mine for the creation of conspiracy theory discourse, as previously seen on the example of Pegida. Going by Schmidt's reality construction program, they offer interpretation patterns and evaluation categories. Due to various recent developments, anti-Islamic websites are flourishing, and in 2005 was around 120 websites. We have picked out two of these websites. It's PI, Politically Correct, and Netzplanet. Suitable concepts have already been presented for such an analysis within cognitive linguistics, which show on a conceptual level how and through which linguistic or pictorial means construction is taking place and which evaluative categories are shifted. Max Black has, within his filter theory based on synoptic thinking, described the interaction of implication systems in metaphorical transmission. In noting the phenomena of mapping and framing, Lakoff and Johnson and followers have alluded to the principle of conceptualization as inherent to the process of thinking. It is in turn connected to the metaphorical transmission process of hiding and highlighting. Within therapeutic application, reframing has since been popularized by NLP and neuro-linguistic programming. Since conspiracy theories are about shifting the perception of social reality and events, these models are not only suitable for the description of conspiracy theory construction, but also for the description of how they are modified to suit the recipient of the message, so that he can incorporate them into his perception pattern. Short revision. Especially the following characteristics are typical for conspiracy theories: a dualistic worldview with a simplified good-evil pattern, a code text onto which all details are alluding, the search for a cause and a culprit which instigate an allegedly socially detrimental development. On the one hand, this entails drawing contours of a regimen created as passport auto through individual examples. This is done by employing features of classical anime images. On the other hand, there is a construction of an excessive self-image, often in connection with a victim role. We will see that also quite deeply. What we want to show is the structure of a construct's reconstruction of social reality excerpts and the process of re-evaluation which is happening during this process. For this, first of all, a common ground is necessary. It is produced by disposing a selection of social subjects, facts as well as interpretation, discussed generally in media and politics, popular pictures and common citations, as well as, last but not least, by a set of semantic differentiations for re-evaluation. We call them modules. Thus, with them, a semantic space is created into which the user has to be invited, and this we call herding. Once entered in the semantic space, the process can be triggered, which we call grounding, meaning that the user can look for modules compatible with his own interest, fears, or constructions. Grounding needs, therefore, a teaser or meeting point. Their transmission and re-evaluation is initiated, because in this moment, two constructs are present, the new one has to be truthened. Grounding, cutting, re-evaluation, and truthening thus are the basic stages of the process of the reconstruction of constructions of reality. They can concur. I will focus now on the structure of the semantic space and on the meeting points to describe how grounding, cutting, re-evaluation, and truthening can happen. This means how semantic differentiations are revalued how images of the self and the foreign are foisted on the user, and how his reflection is navigated by the keywords, the context, and the pictures. Julius will have a look at the structure of media itself, whereas MAREEN and Jenny will analyze the employment of visual metaphors. A short note about the websites. PyPE has been online since 2004. Its contributors are Stefan Herre, Ugo Volli, who also is in the Pegida movement, and Willy Schwendt, chairman of the Federal Association of Civil Movements. The creators of Netzplanet remain anonymous, and I will only concentrate on PE news. For the main page, we find the rubric guidelines. Like in this modules, the makers do not only explain their motivation and goals, they also provide the keywords of the plot or the code texts. The first text points out the basic right for information and individual opinion and criticizes the political correctness of the official media, which are responsible for deficient or falsified information. Distancing themselves as a weak group, the makers underline their engagement for the right to information and individual opinion. Therefore, they want to pick up the boom topics in order to contradict the diktat of political correctness. Hence, we can formulate the following statement as one of the contexts. The political correctness of mainstream media is the origin of deficient or falsified information. This context self-empowers PI makers to search for the allegedly true information, thereby legitimization of a search for the truth as well as an authority over the truth of the presented interpretation patterns is initiated. Psychological research on cities points out that the construction of cities is raising the self-esteem of the conspiracy theorist. Additionally, their supporters attest them the competence of screening the only true interpretation of ongoing events. Thus, the dichotomy of false and true follows the dichotomy of bad and evil, providing the PI contributors with an aura of truth. They become something aching warriors for the truth and fighters for the basic right. This is also illustrated by different links and pictures, such as the one of the German Defense League, which is pretending to fight against all fascist ideologies. And there is written, we also are liberated, you too. You will afterwards see why. It's also a kind of link between two ideas and two modules. Another important characteristic of cities is that at the same time they present a culprit. They provide a release for the act of denomination. We find it in the next paragraph entitled Constitutional Law and Human Rights. It details why the basic rights are in danger. It is due to multiculturalism eroding our civil rights. Multiculturalism is, as is specified, the acceptance of Islamic ethics and culture, which at the same time are generating parallel societies. Those in turn are denying the Western basic rights. Therefore, as the authors are concluding, the principles of Islamic thought, meanwhile, are not only influencing the German citizens, but also media and politics. This explains, from the perspective of the PI contributors, why official media present crimes like forced marriage and honor killing as cultural assets. The PI contributors are distancing themselves from this kind of politically correct reporting. They do not want to bow to multiculturalism, but instead take their duty as citizens seriously, which consists in showing solidarity with all the people who do not want to ignore what is really going on. In conclusion, the PI contributors point out again that mainstream media information is based on political correctness and do-gooding, and that everybody who is saying that what is really going on will automatically be defamed. Here we can clearly observe this previously mentioned characteristic of cities, that while at the same time they present a culprit, they also provide a release for the act of denomination. Concurrently, pre-justice is presented as observation of societal truth, so there we have a shifting of evaluation. We are not astonished that the next paragraph is entitled Against the Islamization of Europe. The PI contributors present Europe again as indoctrinated by the Islamic thought, law and culture. By juxtaposing mosques, forced marriages and honor killing, as well as juxtaposing immigration of Muslims and Sharia, they are drafting a climate of danger and violence for women, Jews and Christians, reminding of the fact, or proponent fact, that in Islamic countries there is no freedom of opinion and information, and of the fact that the jihad is targeting the absorption and domination of Western culture. Additionally, they also warn that this goal is prescribed in the Quran. The code text can now be enlarged as follows. The political correctness of mainstream media supports multiculturalism and therefore is pro-Islamic. Therefore, it is a citizen's duty to criticize the pro-Islamic self-censure of mainstream media in order to prevent the Islamization by divulging information allegedly suppressed by the mainstream media. The dualist good and evil, or right and wrong scheme is evident, and we find it also at the bottom of the page, visualized by cheerleader figures in comic style. Maria instead of Sharia and Islamophobe, but sexy. The keywords right for due information, political correctness, multiculturalism and Islamization are the pillars of the code text and the red line of the argumentation. They are the meeting points where re-evaluation takes place. In order to do this, suitable contexts in the sense of implication complexes have to be provided for a shift in meaning. Such a meeting point is primarily the right of information. It is here for everyone and gathers many citizens since it appears neutral. This meeting point, therefore, is especially apt for purging. It is due to this that the PI page presents a special rubric trying to motivate the user to participate. PI wants you, good nose is wanted. The user is motivated to become active and send in information to the page which is not presented in the mainstream media. By using the metaphor good nose, they attest to in advance the good sense for truth, as the good noses are employed in crime detecting. In using this metaphor, the potential informant enters the aura of working for justice and is released from any denouncement in advance. The front picture of this rubric contains itself a message. By using the well-known Anker motif, recruiting soldiers, the importance of each single person is highlighted, who at the same time enters an army of fighters for the truth. The right to true information evokes an additional module, that of the independent thinker. We had it already on the warrior's picture, which is repeatedly triggered in several rubrics. The link to the following book illustrates why. The most popular brainwashing techniques of globalization fans. Popular techniques such as neuralistic programming, basic psychological terminology, and literary or film versions like 1984 or The Matrix are meshed together into a conspiracy construct which intends to show users how they are programmed in their perception through politics and politically correct information. For this purpose, metaphors are used which create a pattern of two possible self-perceptions, as a victim of the conspiracy or as the autonomous self-liberating individual. The strategies of external control and decision-making for citizens that were not dealt with within the NPL literature show you through what methods and why your legs are pulled. We have here the metaphor pulling someone's legs. In English is in German to pull someone by the nose, and the expression pulled by the nose ring is referring to rural culture where the bull had nose ring. The metaphor nose ring suggests that an inherently strong individual presented by the bull is through brainwashing being put before the cart by the foreign-loving Democrats. The alternative confidence is created via the virus metaphor. Those taught viruses circumnavigate the consciousness, turn off the individual thought process and deactivate the very survival mechanisms that the evolution has given us individuals, communities, nations, or societies. They can thus be later. These thought viruses are in actuality, as is explained, the one of globalization as well as the one of guilt and redemption. The first one is coupled with the keyword multiculturalism, the latter with political correctness, which prevents the truth from being reported. In order to receive the truth, the individual thus has to firstly deprogram himself. The meeting point, right, for information, thus is also the place of deprogrammation. And as it is shown in the call detox yourself, the deprogrammation is equated to a detoxication. The user who is called to cooperate hereby acquires guidelines. For example, throw the enemy's effective psycho-war weapon out of your life, the TV. And same goes for mainstream newspapers. So we have this already on in the Google guidelines. There they show which kind of papers you shall throw away. So it's also a kind of to identify the right newspapers for official information. Enabled by this to recognize the truth at the same time, he himself and his thinking is chosen. This turns him into a hero who enlightens the blinded masses even when he is defamed for it, as is illustrated by the following example. It is a photo which was taken during a Pegida demonstration in December 2014, and from the PE makers was selected as the press photo of the year. So there is also an equation in the press photo of the year, and also this kind of information science has also a press photo of the year. The detailed interpretation suggests the user a reversal of categories of good and bad. This is discussed within the context of self-image and enemy image. So I quote, "A female Pegida demonstrator with a flag of Germany walks alone towards the black bloc," it's the left protesters. "She is stopped by a policeman. For our politicians, she is a troublemaker. She belongs to the evil of this country. The good people, on the other hand, are black guys in the right part of the picture. For us, this brave woman is a heroine, a brave demonstrator with the colors of our freedom. A policeman who knows the distribution of power here, and on the right, the minions of power of the Gauts and Mertes, eagerly waiting to land the first punch. For us, this symbolic picture is a press photo of 2014. And the photo editing glimpse also to the re-evaluation of the keyword political correctness via the connection multiculturalism, which is leading to the central message, the imagic Islamization. It is chosen by evoking various strategies and modules, for example, with a counter for dead bodies connected to Islamist suicide attacks, or by series of personal reports in the rubrics My Way to Critique of Islam and My Love for Germany, or I Love Germany. These modules, consisting in allegedly lived stories, are chosen by authentication, and at the same time they are suggesting and re-evaluating nationalism and xenophobia. They are implicitly hidden also in the valuation of the keywords by legitimizing political incorrectness being the gateway for truth, as is explained in the guidelines. Facebook commentaries show that this message is received. Julius will give some examples. It's mostly in hate speech. Let us sum up. The structure of reconstruction of construction of social reality excerpts and the processes of re-evaluation can be schematized like this. You already know this. These kinds of information blocks deliver the typical meaning elements, semantic categories, and connection rules. We call them modules. These can be known historical facts, known conspiracy theories, or current events and their respective possibilities of contextualization, as we have been worked with the examples in all of the Wikipedia examples. Some modules open up association fields, others convey evaluation categories, linguistically and pictorially alike. The image of reality, which can be constructed therefrom, is pre-orientated through this. Via the choice of content from the offered exchangeable modules, via the code text, which insinuates the combination and chaining of the modules via the keywords, and via the marking of the modules. That is, they are on the semantic level marked with generally known keywords, quotes, neologisms, or image motifs which grabs the attention, pre-orient the perception and evaluation through specific association horizons, and, as we will show now, via media structures. The cognitive work of the user is merely to combine the right sets of categories with association horizons in the semantic space of the PI website. They thereby generate constructions. The thereby generated constructions can vary, but they are all made with the same material. Thus, they can't deviate much from the context. Thanks for your attention.
If there are questions of understanding, you have a chance to speak now. If not, we would postpone the real discussion for after the round of presentations. So if something is unclear, you can ask now. If you want to discuss or comment, it's a bit later.
Well, since all talks are connected, maybe we can have a discussion at the end. What do you prefer?
Okay, so Julius ERDMANN as the panel.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for the possibility the opportunity to speak about my point of view on conspiracy theories and rather embedding into the social and user-generated internet of our times. You will perhaps remark that I will get back to a lot of points that Eva Kimminich already stated, but from a merely other point of view, or rather another point of view, which is how did I call it? A media-related point of view, if you want to. As Eva Kimminich pointed out, we would not like to focus on conspiracy theories as a coherent theory about structures of power, but we analyzed two prominent websites that are frequently cited in neo-nationalist conspiracist thinking in Germany, which are Politically Incorrect News, again on the left side, and Let's Planet on the right side, and there are many others. I don't want to quote them. The articles of those websites represent what we have called fragments or patterns or modules of an alternative social construction of reality that is also based on the attribution of conspiratorial structures to a homogenic or more or less heterogenic group of enemies. We therefore have to deal with texts that on the one hand stimulate the identification with a certain approach or thinking the world or having a worldview, and on the other hand that claims to promote true alternative accounts to reality. So we have both processes of quoting and truthing again. For this reason, PI News and Netzplanet may appear on the first sight as typical examples for alternative websites, and this is a crucial point of my presentation. In the following paper, there's something. Yeah. Okay. In the following paper, I focus on the ambiguous situation between those alternative websites and the classic concept of alternative media on the internet. In addition to the semiotic content posted on websites and the narrative strategies already analyzed by Eva Kimminich, the reading of content on contemporary websites is also highly shaped by its collective sharing. Oh no, it's good. Collective sharing, spreading, commenting, and negotiation, as well by its technological embedding. So we can see here, those are like, you can see again the German Defense League, wonderful logo, and on the other hand you can see those comments that are posted underneath the original article of PI News. So for me this point is very crucial, that we have the possibility to post comments, to put comments to say I like on Facebook and stuff like that. And so I'm getting back to points that were already stated by Mr. Quattrociocchi and Mr. Tipaldo yesterday. So I will focus, or I will follow those structural characteristics in 3 steps. First, I will analyze the websites themselves and their interrelations to social networks like Facebook in order to outline their distinction to mainstream media and their self-positioning in the context of alternative media. Then I will analyze how semantic fragments are connected through the media's functional structures and through user activities in order to form a mosaic of meaning. And I think this is a concept that tries to approach this huge, blurry thing that is the end product. Finally, I want to point out that this, instead of a conclusion, construction of a genre of articles that stimulate conspiracy thinking, which is also subject to satirical reproduction or deconstruction through genre hacking by mainstream media. So we have a tool, we have a kind of getting back to the sources and circulating. So for the first point, PI News Let's Planet as alternative media versus mainstream media. Both web pages, PI News and Let's Planet, position themselves as alternative news web pages and therefore state a difference to mainstream media. Here we can see an article on the right side that is original from Let's Planet. Actually, they made a kind of a research on an internet tracking website to see which different page ranking you can distinguish for different, like those right-wing alternative websites. PI News is citing this article and saying that this actually shows that PI News politically incorrect is on the second place. And they're stating PI News on the second place of alternative media or news sites in Germany. Which is interesting is that this analysis made by Let's Planet is actually kind of private, just like subjective list of websites that could be interesting, so it's not at all a scientific study. But we can clearly see that they position themselves in the range of alternative media websites. So in this list, they range themselves between other websites that position themselves again against mainstream media, and they're characterized by the neo-nationalism approach, being against the power of European Union. They are oppositional, I think, yes, they are oppositional to the actual political system in Germany. They're against Islamization of Germany and Europe. We already heard it in the other presentations. They're against leftist politics and against mainstream media and press. They therefore present themselves as an alternative voice in political meaning, and hence as standing in the tradition of classical concepts of alternative media, claiming the same right of freedom of expression, and Eva Kimminich did already pointed out. We thus might reconsider the general conception of alternative media as it is used in scientific research, and there's a long tradition to speak about those things. If we see the Lifro's account to alternative media, we can see those characteristics that the following. Alternative media are interventionist by subverting common grounded thinking and presenting oppositional meaning. The lecture of their contents requires subcultural literacy in order to understand oppositional meaning making. They often present the contents with irony in order to establish an artificial distance to official meaning. They are ephemeral, not institutionalized media, and they work on a collaborative base, and they present heterotopic content that include a large scale of different social groups as potential addresses. Insofar, both sides, Netzplanet and PI News, may appear as alternative media, but when it comes to the framing and goals of alternative media web projects, as considered by Rainer Winter, both seem to differ. So following Rainer Winter, alternative media aims at showing different and marginalized perspectives. They therefore use the internet in order to establish social diversity, plurality, and social progress through the democratization of knowledge, pluralization of positions, meanings, and sources. And perhaps we can already see that there's a small thing which is not getting along with it. Following the concept of democratization and pluralization of meaning-making, alternative media aims at offering another point of view on the world, in addition to the mainstream media discourse. PI News and Netzplanet may be interventionist attempts to deconstruct common political meanings. In its self-framing, PI News states to offer, and this is the above line, perhaps it's not that clear, but I will read to you. They state to offer news against the mainstream and to be pro-American, pro-Israeli, against the Islamization of Europe and for human rights according to German constitution. Again, we may see kind of an alternative approach for the human rights according to German constitution. However, their positioning against the mainstream is based upon a denial of legitimacy of all democratic institutions that influence public opinion, first of all the official media. PI News put different tags or categories to their articles in order to discredit official media, and Massimo told, he asked a question before about discrediting official institutions, and I think this is a very important point. So in order to discredit official media coverage, the term of Lügenpresse, we already heard it, it's a lying press, that was already used in Nazi Germany. The label propaganda, media, or against swindle and political correctness. So we might see it on the left side, on the top, that those categories, Lügenpresse, political correctness. Though Netzplanet, the other side, does not attribute keywords as taxonomic structure, the term of Lügenpresse again, so the lying press, appears directly in the articles, but in the title. As seen on the right side, so there's an article of Netzplanet genügend Presse Gesprächsversuche mit Kritikern, so trying to discuss with critics. Moreover, categories like multiculti for multiculturalism or politics are used to contextualize articles that actually dishonor the keyword. And we might see this in the lower section. For example, multiculturalism lists articles about the failing of a multicultural society that leads to criminal immigrants. So we see those dangerous black faces there. And the collapse of the power of German people. Let's Planet and PI News are conceived as collaborative projects but based on block architecture. That means that users can only submit proposals for articles, but they only can submit those proposals. The main field of interaction is the comment option underneath every article, as shown already. This stands in direct opposition to the collaborative aspect of alternative media that often provides the individual publication option for every registered user, as to be seen on Indie Media, for example, so an alternative, less leftist, worldwide online project of alternative media. Once you're registered, you can post articles online without any problem. The comment section on both websites is to be moderated. Both claim not to publish comments that are hate speech, offensive, political extremism, calls for violence, but also mainstream or leftist ideology. In contrast to this, comments are often clear hate speech, and those comments are still on the web pages themselves. So here we can see a user that used those comment function to clearly attribute enemies to the article's content, as we can see in this example of Let's Planet, that is part of hate speech against the mainstream media. And you can see the words they are using, those buzzwords, from a user that calls himself the Prussian 1900. We therefore can state that these neo-nationalist differing news websites cannot clearly be labeled as alternative media. They do not represent an alternative account in the sense of another perspective on the world. Although they are legitimized by an anti-media discourse, this discourse is ambiguous for two reasons. On the one hand, as Sabine Schiffer has pointed out, for the Islamophobic ideology of PI News, they often present perspectives that are a common ground in Germany's public opinion, so they are not that alternative at all, actually. On the other hand, both websites entirely rely on news coverage from established media as a base and reference for their articles. Normally, and I will show an example later, they only cite articles from Taz, from FAZ News, so official mainstream newspapers. This points out two problematic characteristics of PI News and Let's Planet. On the one hand, their legitimacy is not rooted in providing a plurality of perspectives, but in a meta-discourse that discredits all other sources of meaning-making as liars. They are not presented as alternative to, but rather as corrective for and discrediting, if you want to, official media coverage. On the other hand, the inherent meaning of those articles is not to be seen as coherent statements as parts of an independent perspective or conspiracy theory. The websites rather offer news fragments as starting points for individual reflection. The framing of this individual reflection often does not lie in the article itself, but is product of techno-semiotic embedding and collective processing. So this is my second point. As Eva Kimminich already has pointed out, the guidelines of PI News position its authors as researchers for true information. But the content of articles often does not provide a coherent conception of the given problem, of true solutions or clear enemies. It is rather the technological and narrative structure of the website itself that permits users to embed the article into a coherent worldview with conspiratory tendencies, as it is to be shown in the following example. And I know that you will like it, perhaps. This article is entitled Merkel, Germany is an immigration country. So Merkel says that Germany is an immigration country. Under a montage photo that shows Merkel as a clown can be found a summary of an article from German mainstream newspaper FAZ, where Angela Merkel points out that Germany is an immigration country and it needs immigrants as skilled workers. Therefore, Germany must intensify its culture of welcome. the content of this article does not provide a clearly negative statement. It is to be seen as a quasi-neutral news report. But apart from this content, the article is tagged with the category Bunte Republik, which is to be seen here, that denounces the German ideology of multiculturalism. Furthermore, a YouTube video is embedded at the end of the article. This video, starring controversial German journalist Henrik Broder, states that Merkel prosecutes the extermination of German race and intensifies the migration to Germany. And the video hence is called "Government Wants to Eradicate Germans." So, neutral article is put together with all those quite heavily charged other fragments, if you want to. The meaning of the article is therefore not constituted on the content level, but it's on its techno-semiotic enhancement through embedding multimodal content, the categorization that clearly criticizes the dominant ideology of political mass, and the general recontextualization of an originate article from mainstream media to a website that states to offer an alternative worldview by debunking official mainstream meaning structures. So all those things are like enhancing the meaning of this article. On the other hand, the article does not stand alone. It is enhanced by the inscription of collective reading processes that are to be seen in the comment section underneath this article. Their readers propose a coherent interpretation of the seemingly neutral article. Those comments tend to construct a powerful small case of politicians that make decisions ignoring the needs and opinion of the people. I will skip this, but if you want to, I can translate everything for you. It's really interesting. PI News and Netzplanet not only publish their articles on their own blog websites, but they use the possibly large scale of coverage that is inherent to social networks like Facebook. There, the techno-semiotic functions of meaning-making are multiplied. Users dispose of a quasi-automatic one-click like button that not only states individual sympathy for content, but also helps to generate public divulging. This is here, to be seen here. Then, content can also be disseminated to individual users through the sharing option, which is this one. Both functions also augment the meaning of an article as the number of likes or sharings is engraved to the social network content. So those things are directly connected to the article that is embedded to Facebook. This becomes even more evident when we speak about the comments that are posted on the Facebook content. Comments that receive more likes are to be seen as dominant interpretations of the article and are therefore easily adopted. In the example, those comments represent Merkel as a betrayer of the German people. This is another lazy term, and states that the German government works for illegal immigrants. Again, I will shift this. So, but it's interesting that those comments are more liked than other comments. Hence, the techno-semiotic enhancement and the engraving of the following social communication and negotiation of meaning have different purposes. First and foremost, those options help to disseminate the content and augment the visibility. But the article itself does not provide an alternative perspective in this case, but on the news content, and therefore cannot be labeled as a clear attribution of conspiracy or rather conspiracy theory. The techno-semiotic functions on the level of the website provide connection points to existing alternative interpretations and worldviews, and we have seen this in the comment section. This is to be seen in a distant incorporation of mainstream news coverage into the frame of an anti-mainstream website. Particularly markers and labels like the PI categories contribute to shape the reading of the given article. Furthermore, the exhibition of existing interpretations to the content in the comment sections enables a guided lecture to the content. By using social media, some readings are prominently exposed and dominate the general possibility of alternative interpretations. We can say that techno-semiotic functions on the internet, as well as collective reading, so as I have shown it, establish a new dominant cultural order in the sense of Stuart Hall, that restrict the possibilities of meaning-making by offering structures of explanation and ready-made enemies. And those, again, are put to the article. So the article itself pretends to be neutral. The corrective news blogs, PI News and Netsplanate, are therefore to be situated between texts of conspiracy thinking and coverage of alternative media. They use processes of coding to generate a public, and they provide connection points between news content and conspirative models of worldviews by clearly placing themselves against mainstream media. The truthing and explanation on the level of news content is to be made by the internet users and readers. Okay, I will finish with my last point. In place of a conclusion, the satirical reproduction and genre hacking. Although the self-framing of PI News and Netsplanate is a very hybrid concept, one may suppose that a distinct genre of quasi-alternative news is created on the internet. And this creation of a genre also enables the satirical reproduction by using the genre's characteristics as I have pointed them out. On 12th of February 2015, so this year, German leftist, or I don't know, like perhaps leftist, left-sided newspaper Taz published an article revealing that professional protesters from German anti-fascist organization Antifa were engaged to oppose demonstration of German Pegida movement. You already heard about it sometimes. Already, this movement is already explained by Ami and SAMAN. Based on secret documents that were discovered on a lost USB stick, so a lost USB stick, each participant received €25 the hour for protesting against Pegida. So we can see this in the title section of the article of Taz. I think you can read it by yourself. Protest against Pegida and Co. Money for protesting Antifa members. Secret documents reveal Antifa members received money for taking part in demonstration parties and the government support from behind the scenes. The article starts by making clear that this revealing may sound like an obscure right-wing conspiracy theory, but it is rather the bitter truth. Journalist Eric Pater, so the one who wrote this fake article, imitates the genre characteristics of the alternative truthing articles by directly refusing the position of a conspiracy theorist. The given information are to be seen as being neutral. This is verified by quoting different faked and real internet sources, starting with a faked so-called leaked document of Antifa that has been published on Facebook and continuing with Twitter posts from a faked Antifa account. So they made it big work actually to put this article because they had to create all those fake accounts. These multimodal references imitate the quotation technique of PI news articles. They cite a maximum of sources and recontextualize the quoted text in order to establish a new proposition of worldview. As in the latter examples that originate from PI news, a concrete code text that explains the given fragment and puts it in a greater story of conspiration is missing. Quoted sources are used to verify but not to clearly contextualize the content. The hyperlinks lead to multimodal sources, as for example before the video. And here it is an infographic posted by another Antifa or fake Antifa activist, highly elaborated. Following this infographic, the professional protesters are paid by an alliance of government, political parties and political associations. The whole complot is covered by the mainstream media. We have to note here that the conspiracy itself is not clearly stated in the article, but depicted in a linked infographic. The role of the mainstream media also repeats the position of PI News and Netsplanate. In various passages, the article takes a distance to mainstream media that does not care for the violence and strong organization of Antifa and that tries to hide the precarious details of this revelation. It is due to the democratic power of social media that this news, so I just repeated the content of the article. It is due to the democratic power of social media that this news could be discovered. Finally, the article points out that the fight against the illegal structure of Antifa is clearly the will of the people. A real and existing online petition against Antifa has already been signed by more than 3,600 persons. So this petition is existing, but they quoted it in a fake article. Therefore, the article does not only imitate a discourse that doubts established structures of power and reveals facts that are said to be true, it uses the techno-semiotic functions of multimodal content and the embedding into social media in order to publish a pure satirical content. Once the sources are analyzed and the text is read closer, one can see that the article is a satiric reproduction of PI News coverage. But it also can be perceived as a hacking of the discrediting alternative genre of media coverage. As almost every reader of Taz understood the satirical content, supporters of Pegida movement and readers of PI News and other similar news websites did not clearly understand the satirical level. The article has often been reduced to its title and shared through social media and online forums. In addition, and due to this large online spreading, it is quoted by other right-wing news pages like Behördenstress. Finally, politicians of New German Party Alternative für Deutschland, so Alternative for Germany, AfD, like Carina Weber, and surprisingly conservative politician Erika Steinbach from the CDU, so a well-known mainstream German party, if you want to, affirmed and shared the satirical article without any doubt. So you can see the examples, like on the down section, there's Erika Steinbach from CDU that shared this article on Twitter, for example. In these cases, the article, perhaps also without a clear intention, may be perceived as a concrete hacking. The inherent structures of the genre were repeated in order to create another logic and to undercut the original communication through false information. Hence, we may consider the dangerous potential of discrediting media websites like PI News, Netzplanet or Corp Online when we see their reaction to the article of the Taz. They published a kind of a counter article, if you want to, written by Peter Hart and published on Corp Online, and this article, Corp Online, has been shared actually by PI News also. Hart reveals the clear satirical level of the original article, so he's not that silly as perhaps Erika Steinbach from CDU. But he uses the fact that Taz Journal did not clearly label its article as satirical in order to show its arrogance. So actually they use the satirical article, this hack if you want to, in order to say, yeah, mainstream media is quite arrogant because they do not care for their readers. They have to label this and to clearly say this is a satirical article. Taz, as all other mainstream media, does not take its readers seriously. It only creates a lack of confidence or betrays its readers. This is taken as another proof for the inherent characteristics of the so-called lying press. So we are coming back again to the logics of PI News and this logic of lying press and saying we are the right truthers. This case is significant to show that PI News, Netzplanet and other websites do not take an alternative position in order to complete official news coverage by another position and perspective. They use a meta-discourse of discredit against official institutions in order to recruit new audience and legitimate their position. But, as we saw in the first examples, the symbolic hacking of such websites' discourses may be considered as a possible adjustment to their discredit. And I finish with this, and thank you for your attention.
So yeah, thank you, Julius, for another second very enlightening time is now. Points of discussion afterwards. Okay, then I pass the word to Marie Belloff and Jenny ZIEMS. The floor is yours.
So, in our following analysis, we will refer to pictures that we found on the websites PI News and Esplanade, which Eva and Julius already introduced to us. Some of the pictures also have been found via links on these pages. Digital pictures have in common that they can be saved, copied, modified, shared, and spread without restrictions. Since they can easily be modified, some pictures carry captions or slogans. Because of these specific features, digital pictures are prone to abuse. They can be taken out of their original context and be recontextualized in several ways. This is why conspiracy theories often use digital pictures for their theories and assumptions. It is not always clear who is the producer or author of the pictures. Through the separation from the original, the pictures themselves become modifiable models. The internet is an unlimited reservoir of pictures that contains a huge amount of conspiracy imagery. Next to others, this reservoir consists of social and religious stereotypes that stand for patterns of world interpretation. For example, the octopus, which is often used as an anti-Semitic symbol and which incorporates the Jewish greed for power and money, to which we will refer later. So now we start with our first analysis. The title, this is the source of the picture, is Netzplanet. The title is Das deutsche Schlafschaf, which means more or less like the sleepy German sheep. And the caption is Mir geht es noch gut, which means I'm still okay. So in the picture we can see a sheep, or more precisely the head of a sheep on a human body. The sheep or the sheepman is wearing a pointed head and colors of the German flag. His eyes are covered by his sheepdogs. It is wearing a biker jacket with some English patches. He is holding a tray of food with burgers and fries in front of him. In the background we can see the skyline of the metropolis with burning and collapsing skyscrapers, and in the sky we see 3 fighter jets. A linguistic formulation of a metaphorical comparison in the picture could be expressed as follows. The German is the sheep. The source domain is the sheep. The target domain is the German. It's a hybrid metaphor, as target and source are netted in one visual metaphor. The target domain, the German, can be recognized by the personification of the so-called Deutscher Michel. This allegorical figure can be identified by its pointed head. The German Michel in general is characterized as a slow-thinking, sleepy, lethargic, but also as an honest and simple person. The source domain is the sheep, so some characteristics of the sheep will be mapped on the target domain. The implicated complex of a sheep calls some general classified features. The sheep is a gregarious animal. It is dumb, weak, unprotected, and fierce. By use of a metaphor, the German is a sheep, similarities between target and source domain are created, which could be described as follows. Like the sheep, Germans are a flock animal. The eyes being covered by the sheep's dogs resemble blinders, so the sheep cannot see. It is not a coincidence that the sheepdogs look exactly like dreadlocks, because the view directly connects to the concept of dreadlocks, foreigners, multiculturalism, and on the websites we analyzed, immigrants are often referred to as woolheads, but also could be a reference to leftist fashion. The American fast food and the clothing refer to another metonymic context, the so-called American way of life impersonated by the Germans. The big city in the background of the picture could be New York or Frankfurt. Both are the finance capital, which refer to the concept of financial crisis and the dictatorship of the banking sector. The apocalyptic scenery evokes the module 9/11. The title of the picture points to the keyword Das deutsche Schlafschaf, so the sleeping German sheep, which is often used by the right and others' criticism of the government. The Schlafschaf stands for frugal, non-political, Americanized German blinded by the media. Mir geht es noch gut, so I am still okay, stands for the naive, clueless and uninformed stance of the average German. The word still implicates that changes are impending. By enlisting the title and the slogan, plus a consideration of the context, we could formulate the message constructed by the visual metaphor as follows. If the uncritical, naive and Americanized German continues to close his eyes of the truth and reality, he will become a victim of his own deficiency, because we are already moving towards an apocalyptic future.
Yeah, and we'll now continue with the next analysis. Yes. From this montage from the website Erstplanet, we see see a boat in the water with international politicians as passengers. The group of politicians is cut out from a photo which was taken at the funeral march for the victims of the Charlie Hebdo assassination. The title of the image is New Boat of Refugees Spotted. All European peoples refuse to take these refugees in. The conceptualization that the image applies to the junction of the two implication systems is politicians are refugees. When including the title of the image, we have a multimodal metaphor in this case. Without a title, the metaphor politicians are refugees would not be explicit because the source domain would also be safer. The similarity between the source domain, refugees, and target domain, politicians, is not naturally given, but is created through the junction in the picture. The title intensiates the metaphor. The visual implementation, a life raft in the sea, follows current depictions in the media, which often shows refugees in life rafts. False-word statement that the context of visual metaphors always has to be considered becomes very clear with this image. The authors of the website militate against immigration and Islamization, for example by claiming that refugees do not have any right to live in Germany because they destabilize the country and are a burden to the German people, so it can be expected that only negative aspects of the source domain, refugees, get mapped onto the target domain, politicians. Moreover, the title of the image suggests a refusal of the depicted refugees, namely the politicians. All European peoples apparently refuse to shelter them. With the wording, it gets obvious how the reception of social happenings is attempted to be influenced. Through presenting the website as a journalistic blog, the articles and pictures are staged as newspaper articles, so the recipient deem them objective reports. By saying that those politicians are refused by every European country, the title seems to be reporting the actual opinion of all Europeans. The validity of the fact and truth is implicated. If we want to know which kind of negative aspects of the source domain refugees are mapped onto the target domain politicians, we have to look at how the website reports about them. We carry together the information about refugees, given there and mapped it onto politicians. Within the context of the website, we then use the following. Politicians are impotent. Politicians want to fleece their citizens. Politicians are refused by every people of the EU, and politicians are a threat. The connection of the two domains has a negative effect on the application system of the target domain politician. Of the target source politicians, as well as it has a negative effect on the application system of the source domain refugees. Because politicians as well as refugees are named as culprits and enemies in current articles on the website. This interdependency is based on complex interaction. The metaphor supports the negative way of looking at refugees and politicians, promoted by the website, and is staged as a proof to legitimize their denunciation. The following aspects of the domain refugees are completely hidden. But these are not the hidden aspects. It's just the following aspects of the domain refugees are completely hidden. Refugees are in need of help. Refugees are in danger to life, and refugees can also bring valuable ideas and knowledge to the country.
Okay, so this is a cartoon of Götz-Wiedenroth. This is found via link on the BI News, and it was published in November of 2014. And it's called like Ministerielle Belehrungswerde der Sklaven, which means more or less the ministerial indoctrination of the German slave of compensation. The cartoon we see here is a short visual narration. The understanding is just working by simultaneous and equal consideration of text and illustration. In the upper left image border, we can see the flag of the NSDAP, so the Nazi Party, its three party members or Nazis. Their mouths are wide open for a cowl. Directly inside, we see a green banner with a Hilal, the Grecian in the stars, so the symbol of Islam. The lower part of the banner is adorned by the German flag colors. Alongside the three so-called militant Muslims, the same facial expressions as the Nazis. Both, so Nazis and Muslims, postulate death, Below them is written, these are your ancestors, the Nazis, and these are your sons and daughters, Muslims. In the lower part of the cartoon, we see Thomas de Maizière, which is the German interior minister of the CDU, who is instructing a comparison to de Maizière, apparently a very small man. The hands of the man are bound and he is gagged. He is wearing an already known pointed hat. De Maizière explains, you are guilty, guilty, guilty. Therefore you will pay till you vote for black. This is actually a shift of the German saying, which is you will wait till you turn black. It means to wait without affect, and to vote black implies to vote for the Christian Democrats. You will vacate your house and yard for refugees. You will implant a monitoring ship, become an organ donor, and you will convert to Islam. So the first linguistic and visual metaphorical comparison could be phrased as follows. Muslims are like Nazis. This is a metaphorical simile because both elements of the metaphor, target and source domain, are entirely pictured. Target domain are the Muslims, source domain are the Nazis. The attributes mapped by the Nazis on the Muslims are slightly negative connoted. By the metaphorical comparison, similarities between Nazis and Muslims will be established. First and foremost, the one that they want to eliminate Jews. Despite the ellipsis of the das, interjection, it is obvious at whom it is directed. Further attributes which are implicitly mapped from the source to the target domain are Muslims want the world domination, Muslims are murderers, they are fanatics, Muslims commit genocide, and Muslims are intolerant and of different opinions, other religion, and homosexuals. They are dictators and oppressors. So part of creating an enemy image, the metaphor Muslims are Nazis, can also lead to a shifting of actors, because to a certain extent outrages committed by the Nazis will be clouded by the dark doings of the Muslims. A potential reading of the message evoked by the metaphorical concept could be, Germany was and is ruled by fanatics and murderers, and the Germans have to bear the blame themselves. According to the lower part of the cartoon and the words of de Maizière, reason and consequence will be drafted. Due to the Nazi past, the Germans have to carry the weight of the internal collective guilt. This manifests itself on political and public level in the several manner of German ministers and politicians. They become slaves of compensation and mouthpieces of the USA. This is illustrated by the de Maizière stars and stripes tie and the red, blue and white burgers coming out of his head. His head reminds one of a birdhouse. That means it is hollow and a part of the bird is part of the American verse and the Twitter. So while his indoctrination, Saliva runs out his mouth. This could be symbolic for the act of corroding. So also a reference to his unfree, independent thinking. On the level of the German citizens, the collective guilt provokes a behavior of subjection, mouth gagged and hands bounded. The effigy of the German Michel also here refers to some characteristic features of the average German: unsolved, submissive, and naive. The apparel of the German is reminiscent of pajamas or in its uniform. So the second important metaphor pictured in the lower part of the cartoon could be formulated as the German is a slave or a prisoner. It is a hybrid metaphorical concept, but the message of the visual metaphor is underlined by the caption. Source domain is the slave prisoner, target domain is the German. Following features from the source domain are mapped to the target domain. The German is not free, he is captured, served, and ruled by others. So the final message evoked through the visual and textual metaphorical concepts could be phrased as, because of his Nazi past, the German is forced to stability, tolerance, dependence, and political correctness. He becomes a prisoner of his own past, but primarily a slave of the USA. By using this cartoon, the INUS underlines the function as illuminators and educators, through creating oppositional truths and showing the importance of political incorrectness as a practice of thinking.
manipulations of the logos of different German newspapers and public broadcasting channels. The title of the image is All Media Against Russia. The junction of the application systems Panzer and media implies the metaphor press is war. We have a multimodal metaphor here. The title as well as the image are important for conceptualizing. As the press organs are all German-based, we can further specify the target domain German press is war. This metaphor draws on a salient discourse of the Pegida movement, namely the concept of Lügenpresse, lying press. The concept implies the opinion that German public broadcasting as well as other German mainstream press agencies are only the mouthpieces of German politics, which do not tell the truth but lies in order to manipulate German citizens and to legitimize German politics. The method which is used for the manipulation of the logos is called sniping. It is a practice of the subcultural protest movement against the colonization of the living which is used for an easy visual and textual deformation of advertisement. Semiotic snipers change urban advertisements or logos at night by manipulating one letter or word, or by painting over faces and contents. For example, as we see there, activists change the wording of the Shell logo into hell. Sniping is an easy way to shift the meaning and to express own judgments. The same thing happens with the logos in this picture. The magazine Focus gets logos, demoting for toilet. The newspaper Bild gets blöd, which means dumb. And the magazine Spiegel, Mirror, gets Schmiergeld, demoting for messy writer. The letters of the newspaper Die Zeit are replaced by Der Stürmer, which was a Nazi newspaper during the Third Reich. These easy metaphorizations call up denunciating connotations which demote reporters into liars, fools and scandalmongers. The aspects which are mapped from the source domain war to the touch domain German press are as follows. The German press attacks Russia. The German press is unsupportable. The German press is shooting at Russia. And the German press is violent. The context of the image is given by the actual Ukraine conflict, for which German press officers often blame Putin and Russia. Behind this assignment of guilt, the authors of Netzplanet and P-News suppose a conspiracy between Western European and American politics against Russia, as they demonstrate in many articles or pictures. The specified narrative discussed in this picture is the theory that the NATO wants to encroach the Ukraine with the aid of the European Union to get a greater area of influence against Russia and Eastern Europe. Participation and cooperation is allowed to the German press, which supposedly spread lies. The metaphorical concept is adapted from the general context of the discourse and supports the website's point of view and theory. In addition, the metaphor justifies the idea of Lügenpresse, again, by comparing it with the machinery of war, which is a central discourse in the ideology of Pegida and related websites. With this metaphor, they also distance themselves from the mainstream media and their point of view. Netzplanet is staging itself as an alternative journalism website which is telling the truth.
Okay, so now we can to my last analysis. This is also a cartoon of Götz Wiedenroth, and it was published in January 2015. And the title is Witness the Bloodbath Russia is causing in Ukraine. And the caption is in the Kriegsbereitschaftstinte, which means more or less in the ink of the readiness for war. So in the cartoon we see an octopus wearing the top hat with the acronym US. This top hat points out that the octopus is a personification of the Potsdam, a famous American national allegory. The S on the head stands out as it looks like the S on the SS emblem. His eyes are replaced by the dollar sign. He's holding a little man with politics about harm in his tentacles, as well as 3 different newspapers that belong to the mainstream press, which is pointed out by the buzzword "new press" or "flying press." In his left tentacle, he's holding Yeltsin, the Ukrainian prime minister, precisely a big knife, which handle is replaced by Yeltsin. With the knife, the Kraken sits in Ukraine, symbolized by a huge blood spot. The Kraken is sitting on the global surface. There are 8 people sitting in a tank filled with liquid. Their jaws dropped by following the news the octopus provides. The symbols on the tank board point to the assumption that the people are members of the EU and NATO. So we could phrase the first metaphor. The US government is an octopus. It is a hybrid and metaphorical concept. Features mapped from the source domain octopus and the target domain USA are the USA have tentacles and for self-protection or defense reasons they produce ink. Through this map features we can get to the interpretation. With the tentacles, the USA entangle the whole globe, which means allegorical that they want to control the world. They can use their specific ink production for self-defense. With the help of the ink, they can be cloud and camouflage the site. Ink is also used for writing, so they can write their own news. The second metaphor is created by the combination of linguistic and visual elements. The metaphorical concept is multimodal. The legend of the cartoon says in the Kriegsbereitschaftstinte, so in the ink of readiness for war. We can assume that the liquid in the tank is ink. This is a linguistic metaphor pictured by a visual metaphor. In der Tinte sitzen, so sitting in the ink, means as much as to be in a mess. So the members of EU and NATO are in a mess. The message transferred by the cartoon on the basis of different metaphorical concepts could be: the USA are dominating the politics and the mainstream media, the so-called new press. Due to this predominance, they spread their propaganda and they control the world affairs. They use Yeltsin and the Ukrainian conflict to agitate against Russia. The states of the EU, because of their belongings to the NATO and the blindness created by the propaganda of mass media and politics, are part of the American machinery of war. So last note, it's like just about the octopus, because the image of an octopus grabbing the globe with his tentacles is not a new one. The Kraken is an archetype of anti-Semitic symbolism. The most famous one is a caricature published in 1938 in Der Stürmer, which was the weekly's anti-Semitic and Nazi journal. So actually it is impossible, I guess, that we didn't know about the historical and the symbolic context of the picture. Also, the word Lügenpresse refers to different modules. On the one hand, it had become a buzzword in 2014 in the context of the Pegida movement. On the other hand, it points to the word Lügenpresse, which had been used in the past, especially during the World Wars, to defame the antagonistic arguments. In the Second World War, Lügenpresse was equivalent to Lügenpresse. The present hostile stance to America often implies a certain anti-Semitic stance as well, because it connects to the implication system: USA capitalism, Wall Street financial crisis, Jewish managers control the stock market, greedy for money and responsible for the financial crisis. From this follows that a subtle anti-Semitic reading of the cartoon's message could be possible. So I questioned myself if this would be a contradiction to the often proclaimed pro-Israel stance from the authors of PI News. But I think no, rather it could show that the PI News is using a pseudo-solidarity with Israel to demonstrate the democratic tolerance of religion, just to justify the agitation and hate against Islam.
Normally we would have one more analysis, but if I told me that we are over with the time, I mean, if it's okay if we do the last analysis or...
If there are no objections, I guess.
Okay. The last image. This picture was published on Facebook by Pegida. The slogan, "Don't give Islamization a chance," is written. The term Islamization is marked with red backgrounds. Within this picture pictorial representation, we see a form of sniping. Design strongly resembles the 25-year-old German HIV prevention campaign, Don't give HIV a chance. In this Pegida depiction, the word AIDS was replaced by Islamization. Through this replacement, an equalization of the terms AIDS and Islamization is evoked, and to create a connection of the two application systems suggests a metaphor: Islam as a virus. With the appeal, don't give Islamization a chance, a refusal of Islam is decreed to the recipient, as if it is an illness which threatens supposedly healthy Germany. By taking over the whole logo of the educational campaign and the publication by Pegida, also characteristic features of the original author are tried to be transferred to the new author, which evokes the image that Pegida is a headquarter for education. With this comparison, the authors try to give Pegida the image of a serious and beneficent organization which devotes itself to the clarification, education, and protection of the German citizens. The education, the spreading and knowledge of anti-Islamic theories and their justifications serves as a protection from the virus, the Islam. By taking over the logo of an education campaign, the curtain effect is also tried to be transferred. The appeal to give no chance to the Islamization is tied with the offer to join the Pegida movement to be protected by quantitative inside knowledge about the symptoms and causes of the Islamization. This knowledge, designed as truth, is on the one hand protection against Islam, on the other hand is used to fight it. Preventive measures in the view of Pegida would be the deportation, the exclusion and the refusal of refugees, Muslims and Muslima who live in Germany or who want to live in Germany. Meanings that get mapped from the sus-domain virus to the target domain Islam are: Islam sickens people, Islam must be fought, people must be told the truth about Islam, Islam poses a threat to the health of Germany, and Islamization can be fought through preventive measures. With this picture, we see how Pegida tries to recruit followers through copying known and successful advertising campaigns, which additionally transport a respectable image. The picture is used to create the image of Pegida as a non-selfish organization that cares about their citizens. At the same time, the picture reveals again the threat of Islam and operates as a model that refers to the context of the movement. And we are now coming to the summary. It's a very short summary. Very short.
Okay. Just to sum up, we can say that all metaphors are used to create enemy images by revealing on traditional metaphorical concepts or by using collective knowledge of history. The context of the metaphors are implying a warning and ask for preventive measures. So the metaphors are used to create a positive and serious image of the websites and Pegida movement to call the recipients by transferring various characteristics. Visual metaphors are used as modules to be anchored in the concepts and create issues. And so the last sentence, metaphors can extremely simplify the abstract content of the crisis, which gives the possibility to call the recipients and to convince them about their theories. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks a lot for this last and also very enlightening presentation. I think we got a great overview of theoretical reflections and explanation of the new model, and together with empirical analysis. I would open the floor to questions, comments, discussion. You're welcome to step up front and take the microphone. Thank you very much. It was very rich. This is the last presentations, on the one hand. On the other hand, they can be more sophisticated. For instance, when they compare ideas to viruses that can be inoculated. So there is a certain biologization of discourse that I think is a common trend of many conspiracy theories. This is the first element, so I wanted you to, like, if you want to react about this first element. The second element is irony and metaphors, which are used to communicate conspiracy theories, to denigrate the enemy. And in the case that JULIUS showed, irony was used also as a way to satirize the discourse of conspiracy theories. Now, there was an interesting parallel between this experiment and another experiment, similar experiment that Dr. Marino showed concerning the Italian Five Stars movement, wherein a satirical page parody was actually not recognized as such. So I wonder whether there is there too a certain common trend. In order to perceive a metaphor, you have to admit the existence of literary level of meaning. In order to perceive irony, you have to be able to distinguish between the discursive level of irony, which is always a meta level, and a level of common knowledge. So all these episodes suggest to me that irony and metaphors are more and more difficult to be perceived, exactly because this common knowledge, this common ground is not there anymore. So those are just two elements that I saw across all your presentations, and I don't know if you wanted to comment on those. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Massimo. Irony is something what we eclipsed you, because for us it was important to understand how this kind of conspiracy theory is constructed. And I just was thinking about the circle water was showing yesterday with all the subjects on it to figure out what the subjects are addressed. With this kind of analysis, you could reduce it to some keywords which are going for all these subjects. So irony for common ground and irony is something different which we could not treat here. So for us it was important to look for the teasers and for you will find, for example, we had the example of deprogrammation and programmation and intoxication, and you find it also in the visual metaphors. But the ironic one is a very difficult point, and that we could not do in the same thing. So I think irony is very important because first I wanted to show also some examples which I did not show because the ideas on the guidelines and on the side of programmation. With this book I showed, they particularly speak about irony as a strategy which they
question of irony is really interesting for me. What Eva said is the case, actually. We can take those examples, as we can take the example of the documentary shown by Gabriele Moreno. In order to see what is actually grounding, so what is making the common ground. And in my case, when we like look, I showed some examples of people like really thinking so, like sharing those information and saying this is the case, it's reality. Antifa people are paid for making counter demonstrations. But those people are only taking, for example, the keywords, or as it was already said, or the title, or stuff like that. And then you're right, we have to have a kind of knowledge. But this title or those keywords are also reflecting a kind of a subcultural knowledge, as I showed it for the alternative media, like buzzwords that trigger my subcultural mind, if I want to. On the same hand, you have to have the possibility to really read information in its complexity, and that's the problem. That's why I think we had this like kind of heterogeneous presentation in order to show different elements and levels of those conviction strategies on the net, because it's quite more complex and difficult to treat those small articles on PI News than just showing the content. And actually those people who discovered the mockumentary or the satirical aspect of the Taz newspaper article, which was made as a clear satiric article for its readers, who also have this kind of subcultural knowledge as readers of Taz. Those who were like recognizing it were actually those who are also writers for PI News. So those people are already like having textual knowledge and the kind of knowledge, and if you want to also political communication, I think perhaps it's a little bit provocative to say it like this, but it's my point of view. So I think we have to distinguish both sides. On the one hand, you can have like those triggering points, those grounding, those buzzwords that are triggering subcultural knowledge and saying you are taking part of this group. And on the other hand, you have to have like media knowledge if you really want to discover those documentaries or satirical objects. And that's why I'm really near of what Andreas Anton was saying, that we cannot like make a general thing or like a general approach to say, okay, it is more or less difficult to analyze irony and satirical texts. I think it really depends on the concrete context of every like conspiracy theory, if you want to, or like on every kind of text we are treating also as symbolisms. In this case, I think it's quite special to see how they're using it. I don't know if it's in the case of the documentary, it was another example, I think, not the same.
Oh, sorry.
I'd like to ask whether you take into account the personal rights. Sometimes you said they, and maybe it's worthwhile looking from the point of one person and doing some research on whether this person writes in different ways for different people on different topics, and that this way concentrating the message and the person behind it. I think it should be more clear who is it in order to. But maybe you did.
As I said some sentences about it only, but for the makers of Next Planet, they are anonymous, so it's difficult to say something about them. The PI makers, we have names, but we do not know exactly who was writing which article that is. And as Julius pointed out also, it's also the commentaries are plus or minus anonymous. So, but I ask myself if it's really important because it's public space. It's a semiotic space for everybody, and the things are put inside and they deploy their effects. So, as we could see also with Quattrociocchi and Tipaldo, it's not it's running around, so that's important. It's pushed inside the semantic space and it's doing its work inside, like a kind of virus. So anyway, it's and also the comments. It's just showing how people can react, how they take the message or they don't take it. There are also other comments, but so more we can't say.
Just as a small correction to Eva, or like
Yes.
a small idea. I wouldn't talk about viruses. The special thing is that there are people who are actively not only sharing but commenting, liking, and I wouldn't speak about like, kind of an affection that's coming over me as an internet user. On the other hand, you have like those spreading characteristics of using texts on the internet and social media for sure. But and those authors who are like putting together those texts, and perhaps putting together is the better word because they are not really authors. They are trying to they're taking sources like the FAZ article, for example, putting another title or repeating almost a title, putting a video, and that's all. So they're not really like, can we still deal with the question of the author? And not because of the internet, but because of this special type of texts. But I think the question of the author is more or less situated on how people are putting those articles that are just fragments together and put it into their personal individual theories without calling it conspiracy theory, but just theories of world making, if you want to. So I could more or less try to situate the author more on the reader's side and on this inscription side to the content that I liked it, I put my view on it, stuff like that. But then it's difficult because those people are normally like private and don't know them, I cannot analyze their CVs and stuff like that. Yeah, you're getting beyond the author.
The possibility of being good.
I think the translation of Buddhista is mentioned in person. We translate do good in English. I don't know if it's exactly that, but that is often mentioned in the same Roman thing. I speaking about political correctness and Buddhista. So it's the same thing, but I think we had also the explanation, one of the third picture, when the vizier, which was infiltrating with guilt. So that is the same time you have the idea of you put in the virus of guilt in it, and this was named as one of the two big thought viruses. It's what we wanted to show here is with visual, linguistical, and mapping and classic keywords. And this, I think, you can show, and we didn't. There are a lot of more examples you can make parallels. It's one system with some keywords which are chained in a particular way, and you find it everywhere. So it seems to be a very broad side with a lot of things, because you find also things about eating, healthy eating, and things like this. But when you look in the modules of the healthy eating, you find the same keywords. So that's what has been interesting for us, is construction, and how with this construction the general view of today's life is being constructed. But it's not everything you will find, but a lot of also all days things without politics. A lot of politics, a lot of refugees, and also the titles of the articles, they correspond with the titles of the caricatures and photo montages behind on it. So I think it's a very clear system, and it's not very intelligent, but you can find it out very easily. But it's not, when you have a look like this, you see, oh, a lot of information, new information, and so on.
Rhetorics.
Yes.
Just as a kind of small addition to this question, for me it's interesting because we have this concept of Gutmensch in German. The Gutmensch, like it's a little bit the same, I think. But what's curious about it, that it's the same thing for Lügenpresse, for example, and also this visuotype of the Krag, like the octopus, is that those buzzwords and highly charged words or concepts are coming from Nazi history, like also the Gutmensch, for example. So I wonder if it's the same thing for Italy, for example. If this concept of buonista is coming from other historic times. But which is interesting for me is that although, or perhaps because, I don't know, we in Germany had the concrete history and all the blaming and all this, this charge about it, although those concepts are coming back, and they're kind of like a little bit, one can speak about the myth in those concepts, because they're somehow taken off all those historical charge, but at the same hand they still keep it kind of like backhead idea. And that's really strange, because you can try to attack those people and say you're using Nazi terms, and they will turn it around and say like, yeah, because you're lying press, and because you're Gutmenschen or Buonista, and that's why you're like accusing us of being Nazi, but we are not Nazi, we are just caring for our people. And so it's exactly the same procedure as every year, and you cannot get beyond this question. So for me it's very interesting that although and because those concepts, because of historical charge, historical problems, we had, those concepts are taking again, come back. So for me it's curious to see that in Italy this concept of buonista is existing also. I thought it's quite a German problem we are having.
I was thinking about the same same because I translated parts of Eva's speech, and the same concept exists in English. It's called do-gooder or do-gooding as a verb as well. So the concept probably is not connected to Nazism or fascism. Maybe it's connected to traditions. And I have a feeling that upbringing has a lot to do with it. That although we live in enlightened age, or we think we live in an enlightened age, a lot of these traditions are still kept around. And so if you tackle those traditions with enlightenment, inevitably people will go into defensive mode. And so it's the same as someone from maybe the left wing might call someone a Nazi as a maybe emotional reaction as well. From the other camp, someone might call someone as Buonista or whatever that's said, respective language. What I find really, really worrying seeing those images is that these ancient images still work, are still present in the collective memory. What I've also noticed is that not always is this done consciously. So these images might be anti-Semitic in origin, but some people, and I've seen like anti-globalization posters as well, which they Kraken as an image. So what I worry about is that these things, they lose their original interpretation, and this seems to be a clear sign that we forget history, and that as soon as it's forgotten, we have these mythological narratives about the World War I or II or whatever, and then we can piece together things because, well, we don't trust in official accounts of these people.
Yeah, if I can add something to the school-mensch debate, I think it's really also a psychological factor. So once there is normative critique of your thinking or position, and if this position is racist, then they're going to project these negative attributes to the other side, and it's just the usual reaction. If you're faced with critique, you want to give it back, downsize the other person or devalue the other person. I guess that goes with it. So you shouldn't stop in the face of being called mentioned if you criticize Nazis, I guess. Yeah, and for these images, it's really found that very, very, interesting is maybe the wrong word, like really, shocking actually how they come up decades and I don't know, half a century later and still work in the same way. And people specifically must be looking for them and really thinking in these kind of ways to reactivate them. So I guess there's some real research being done on how to use these. Are there more questions or comments? Or yes?
The octopus is not a Nazi metaphor. It's much older. It's much older. It's I think before the First World War. It's used already. So
But it had been often used.
yes, yeah.
Exactly, there's this very famous Der Stürmer cover, which you show also. Yeah. Okay. So I guess if that's it, I thank all of you for being here and again to you for presenting. And I guess we continue at 1:15, right?